ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ। होटन की संगत करे करे लोभ जन जोए सुनो सकल साची कहो दुखी होए जग सोए। होटन की संगत करे। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। In Dora 35 of Bhavarsamrit Granth, written by Pandit Gulav Singh Ji, Pandit Ji starts off by saying, "Khotan ki sangat kare, kare lobh jan joy." That the person who does the sangat of khotan meaning, khotan is somebody who lacks something, so somebody who lacks knowledge. And it's obviously when we lack knowledge of Brahma, when we are in ignorance, that we get attacked by the vices. So the word khotan is usually used for fools and people who don't have knowledge, who don't know the reality of the world. So Panditji is saying that the one who does company of the ignorant one, the fools, and then the one who is greedy, who has greed in his heart. Suno sakal sachi kaho, dukhi hoye jag soye. That O people of the world, listen to my words. I'm telling you the truth. That person who keeps bad company and who's greedy within this world, he's going to be disappointed. He's going to suffer. Savaiya tel tel ke sang lahe dukh ko, ras sang te jug ik pedai. Pandaji is using an example of a sesame seed here. And he's saying that just how a sesame seed, because it carries oil within it, and now obviously to get the oil out of the sesame seed has to be crushed and it has to go through a process. So now Pandaji is saying, just like that sesame seed, it has to bear suffering because it keeps company of the oil that's within it, so it has to suffer. And in the same way, ras sanghite jug eek pedai. Eek, which is sugar cane, because it keeps the company of the ras, the juice that's within it, it has to go through this process of crushing. So it has to bear suffering because it keeps company of the juice that's within it. In the same way, hal sangat pad pa eat sahe argand ke sange phool tapaye. Just like that, because the trees, they bear fruit on them, so they have to bear the suffering of getting beaten by stones and bricks. So when we see small kids, they want to get fruits of the trees, they throw stones at them so that the fruit will just drop on the ground. So now, because the tree is keeping the sangat, the company of the fruit, it has to bear suffering. In the same way, argand ke sange phool tapai. The flowers, because they keep company of the fragrance that's within them, they have to go through this process of getting boiled to get the fragrance, so people can get the fragrance out of them. So it's basically sort of like when we use the word guilty by association. कर तंदोल संगत को जग में पुन सीस बिखै तुख मूसल खाए. Next example is that of a grain of rice. Now the rice grain, Pandaji is saying that the tuk, the husk that's on the rice, it has to bear suffering by getting beaten on its head by the pestle so that people can get the rice out that's within it. So that's again, by keeping second company, we have to bear suffering. तिल ईख समंग कर खोटन संगत या जग में दुख कौन न पाए. That just like the sesame seed and the eek, the sugar cane, in the same way, if we were to keep bad company in this world, tell me who is in this world who hasn't endured suffering? Meaning, everyone who keeps bad company will have to bear suffering. So now in the next Savaya, Panditji is talking about greed. नाद के लोभ तजे मृग प्राण सो बीन सुने अह आप बंधाए. Now, because of greed, the first example being used is that of a deer. That the deer, it gets really attracted by certain sounds. And as we know that the people who hunt deers, they use things like deer collars. So they will make certain sounds which will attract the deer. And Pandaji is saying because the deer gets attracted by those sounds, it gives up its own life. So it gets attracted, it follows the sound, and then the hunter will basically capture the deer. So been sune ah aap bandai. Ah, which is a snake. Pandaji is saying that the snake will get itself trapped because it gets greedy. It follows the sound of a bean, a flute. मीन सो त्याग अगाध जरंग और लोभ लगे गल लोह पहाए. That a mean, a fish, it lives in a vast ocean that which is agad, it's so deep, and it's an ocean is basically full of other fish and meat and stuff. But the little fish, it has greed in its heart, so it gets attracted by a small piece of meat which is attached to a fishing rod, the hook, and to go and eat that piece of meat, it goes and it gets a metal hook stuck in his throat, and it ends up giving up its own life. कागद की पुतरी करनी वस मत गइंद सो अंक सखाई. Next example used is that of an elephant, and that because it gets greedy by lust, and because of the lust, what the hunters do is to capture that elephant, they'll place a female elephant made out of only paper on top of so in the jungles they basically dig a deep hole, then they camouflage it with grass and leaves on top of them, and on top of them they place an elephant made of paper. And now when the real elephant, he sees this female elephant made of paper, because it's intoxicated by lust, it comes running in and then gets trapped and falls into that hole. So now because of the greed that it had to endure suffering. So vasamat gaind so ankas khai. It gets trapped, and then it has to bear the suffering of beating on its head. या पाव मंडल माहे सुनो और लोभ करे दुख कौन न पाए. Pandaji saying, listen to this, that those people in this world who have greed within their heart, tell me which one of them have not suffered. So basically, everyone who has greed within them, they will end up suffering. सवैया गीजन मास गहे दुख मुख में पुन चुंडन ते निज मुंड कटाए. Using the example of a vulture here, Pandaji is saying Gijan mas gahe mukh mein, that a vulture when they see meat, one vulture, it'll have a piece of meat in its mouth, And then what will happen is the rest of the flock of vultures, they'll come and they'll start striking that one vulture who has the meat on its head, so that the vulture will drop the piece of meat and they could have it. But then now, the example used here is Gandhiji saying Dattatreya, who was the incarnation of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh ji. They said that they adopted a vulture as one of their gurus because when the vulture was suffering, it it dropped the piece of meat, causing the other vultures to go after that piece of flesh, and the vulture is then happy. So Dattatreya ji is basically saying here that our suffering, it only comes from our own attachment. But if we were to let go of the attachment that we have in this world, then we'll eventually obtain peace and bliss. Just like if that vulture, because it's suffering because it has the piece of meat in its mouth, but all it had to do was drop that piece of meat, and then the rest of the vultures who were making it suffer will go away by themselves. The vulture wouldn't have to do anything special, but only let go. So in the same way, that's something that we can do, that we can live in this world, we can enjoy everything that Maharaj has offered us. But if we were not attached by these things, then we'll obtain that state of bliss as well. So Dattatreya ji, it said here that whenever he would get a teaching like this from anybody, a person, an animal, or a river, or anything, he'll adopt them as their guru because that's where he's learned something from. प्रेग बलि पिख कांज प्रभा और लोभ लगे तेह माहे बंदाए. A prig, which is a bee, they're saying that a bee is such a strong creature that it can bore a hole through the thickest of the wood. But when they see a lotus flower, they see how beautiful it is. They, because of the greed within its heart, it goes and follows the lotus flower, and it gets trapped within it because as the sun sets, the lotus flower, it closes itself. So the bee, because of its greed, gets trapped within it. And by the time the sun comes up the next morning and the lotus flower opens up again, the bee is already the bee has already died because it suffocated the whole night. रूप के लोभ पतंग रहे, अर चोग के लोभ बेहंग फहाए. The next example used is that of a flying insect. So the flying insects, they get really attracted by the image of fire because the fire to them is very pretty. As we can see when we're driving at nighttime, when there are a lot of flying insects, they get attracted by the headlights of the car and they come rushing in, and then obviously they die. So in the same way, a flying insect, it gets attracted by the fire and it goes in. So then obviously what happens, it ends up dying. So now archog ke lob behang pahai. A behang, a bird, it gets itself captured because it gets greedy for the food. So now the story that's written here is that once there was a young pigeon who was residing close to the hermitage, the residence of a saint. Now the saint began to feed the pigeon, and the young pigeon, it grew bigger. When the saint was singing the praises of the god and meditating, the pigeon will continue to listen. This one day, this pigeon met another pigeon, and then they had eventually had a child. The one day, the pigeon went to look for food when a hunter captured the baby pigeon for seed, through its greed for seed, causing a net to be used. So the baby pigeon, he was trying to look for food, and then it got captured because there was a net that was being used by hunters. When its parents arrived back and they witnessed that the child was trapped under a net, and because they had this attachment with that child, they tried to save him. And in trying to save the child, they got themselves trapped in the net as well. So now, when they were trapped within the net, the pigeon then, the male pigeon, started to think, what exactly happened? It started to recall, like, where am I and whose field is this? And whilst he was thinking all these things, they all got killed by the hunter. So Panditji saying that it was because of greed for the food that the bird trapped itself within the net of their hunter. या पाप मंडल माही सुनो और लोभ जगे दुख कौन न पाए. Pandaji saying, listen to this people, that those people in this world who have greed within their heart, tell me, who is there who has not suffered? So everyone in this world has to suffer when they have greed and attachment within their heart. सवैया बिद मानव देह रची जग में एहते सब लोगन को हित होई. Ved Vidata, Brahmaji, that he created the world and he created the human body in this world. And ehte sab logan ko hit hui, that initially how humans are created is they're created so that they can help others around them. So they can help other humans, they can help animals, they can help everybody in this world. इन मैं शुभ साधन को करके जग की पदवी नह हेरत कोई. That when people were created, what they would do is they would do all the subh sadhan, they would perform all the good deeds, and they would eventually they will do bhakti, they will do tapasya, and then they will get liberated. So people didn't really care about the status of um, being born and dying and coming into this world, because they'll come into this world, they'll have the knowledge, they'll do the tapasya, and they'll free themselves from this bondage. So what happened was, jag nahe rahe yah sank pai pun pukh payas rache bed doi. That looking at this, Brahmaji had this shanka, this doubt within them, that it was if this was to continue like this, that people would just do bhakti and then they would get liberated, that how was this game going to continue on, this game of humans coming into this world and all of that. So what he did was then, so then he created the two, the pokh, the hunger, and the piyas, the thirst. So initially it said that when humans were first born, they wouldn't get thirsty and they wouldn't get hungry, which is why they were able to do all the bhakti in the world and then get liberated. As we know, Guru Nanak Dev Ji never got hungry. Bhai Balaji never got hungry. Bhai Mardana Ji got hungry because that was the game that was created by Maharaj, because he had to go and basically show us how to live our life. So he used them as an example, and he traveled all across. So now Brahmaji, because everyone was getting liberated and he wanted the game to go on, he created pokh and pyas, he created hunger and thirst. Then what happened was, जिस ते सब साधन तुर मिले दुख दोए निवारण दौरत लोई. Now, due to the hunger and thirst, all the virtues that people had, sat santokh, daya, khema, taram, the truth, the contentment, the compassion, and the forgiveness, all of that departed, because people started running around in this world because of their hunger and their thirst. To fill their stomach, they started going around working and doing all sorts of things, but they forgot about doing their bhakti, they forgot about God, they forgot about Vaheguru. सवैया रे मान जो फल तोहे रचियो बिध पावेंगो तज संक पिसाची. Now Pandaji here is trying to tell us that even though this whole system was created as such, that because of our hunger, we have to go and work, and then we get greedy thinking, let me work a bit more, let me get more money, and then we end up forgetting what was actually important, which was to meditate, which was to remember God and get liberated, because it's our chance to. So Pandaji saying, Re man jo phal tohe rachyo bed, dada bidata, Brahmaji, God, who has created you, that the phal, the fruit that he has created for you, pave go taj sank pisachi, that you will receive that fruit no matter what. That you should get rid of the shanka, the doubt that you have of whether or not you'll receive it. And that shanka, that doubt, is in the form of a pisach. It's like a demon, that a blood-sucking demon. That this doubt, it's so strong that it's making you so weak. It's taking everything out of you, all the good virtues that you have, because you're just running around thinking, oh, if I work so much, then only I can have this much, um, and maybe I won't live to see another day if I don't work hard and all that. Panditji is saying that whatever has been written for you, you will receive it no matter what. नह लहे तह को नर और सुदौरन में मात का हित राची. That the fruit, the happiness and the suffering and everything that's been written for you, it will be yours. Nar neh lahe teh ko nar or, that nobody else, no other human being will be able to receive what has been written for you. So Pandaji saying, then so Doran mein, then why are you running around? Why is your why is your intellect engrossed in just running around from here to there, thinking that you will be able to receive more than what's been written for you? Or thinking that, let me work this extra shift. I hope that that other person doesn't get that shift. I hope that other person doesn't get the money that's supposed to be mine. Pandaji saying, no, if that money is supposed to be yours, it will be yours. Yo jug te jug aur hai ho hai, so to phal tohe mile bid sachi. That if even the yug, even the ages were to turn, if from Kali Yuga here it was to turn to Satyug, Treta, Dwapar and all that, that even if it was even if the ages were to turn, what is supposed to be yours will still be yours. So to phal tohe mile bid sachi, that this is the truth, that the fruit, the pain, the suffering, the happiness, all the sukha that you're after, it will be yours. It doesn't matter even if how much time goes by, if you were to think that, oh, I didn't receive this today, I asked for this, or I worked hard for this, whatever, I didn't receive this today, then I will never receive it. No, if it's written for you, you will get it no matter what. होए प्रसन्न सो राम भजो, इत ते उत दौरन मैं मत काची. So Vandaji is saying, now stop worrying, be happy, and hoy prasanna, become happy, become get rid of all this doubt, all these thinking in your mind that, oh, I have to work so hard, I have to do this and that. Obviously we have to work, right? But our thinking should not be so consumed by maya. It should not be so consumed that the only thing we're thinking about is to run around here and there, and to gain the materials that we want. But Pandaji is saying, get rid of all that, get rid of all that thinking. And what are we supposed to do instead? Hoy prasanna. Oh, my mind, with happiness, Ram Pajo. Meditate upon Ram, meditate upon God. Itate utdoran me matakachi. That if you were supposed to run around from here to there, that's where your intellect, it doesn't blossom. It remains kachi. What's the word for kachi? Let's see. Undeveloped. Yeah. Um, and yeah, that's what Pandaji is telling us, that whatever is supposed to be ours, it will be ours no matter what. Jeha bije so lune karma sandra khet. Now whatever you plant, that you'll harvest in this world that we've come upon. We've taken the human body. It's a karma sandra khet, that this farm is that of our karma. Whatever sort of karma that we plant, that's the type of karma that we'll harvest. So if I was to do something good today, even if the time, even if ages were to pass, no matter what, nobody will be able to receive what I am supposed to have. So that's why forget worrying. Stop worrying, stop everything else. Um, and just meditate upon God. That's basically what Panditji is telling us here. That's where we'll leave this class for today. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.